prize money there and then, and he issues a challenge. Come on, chicken, if it's about prize money, come out and play.
Bobby was nearly persuaded. A phone call from the US government sealed the deal.
Kissinger said to him something like that, we want you to go to Iceland to win the Russians, the Soviet Union. And they told me that he was like a young warrior going to war.
Bobby finally arrived in Reykjavik, but as usual, the negotiations had only just begun.
Bobby goes down to the hall and he doesn't like the chessboard and he thinks the chairs of the audience are too close and he doesn't like the lighting. There isn't anything that Bobby likes, and he demands that each and every one of those things is changed.
We had to remove several of the first rows, take the audience further back into the hall.
The conditions were met, and on July 11th, 1972, the match began.
Game one's an amazing game. Bobby plays a move that club players know not to play. He takes a pawn with his bishop. A rook pawn allows his bishop to be trapped.
The mistake cost Bobby the first game.
Well, I think he blundered, you know. I think that's pretty clear, you know. I think he was disturbed by some TV towers, you know, who were hanging over him there, you know.
There was a man by the name of Chester Fox who had the camera rights, and he had to wrap the cameras in burlap. Fischer said he could hear the cameras even. He even said he heard the cameras when they weren't even turned on.
Mr. Fox, yes. If it's not the noise that's bucking Mr. Fischer, what could it then be?
I don't think anybody can tell you other than Bobby Fischer, and maybe he can't tell you.
Bobby insisted that the cameras be removed. The Icelanders refused. Game 2 also went to Spassky by forfeit.
He didn't show up for the second game and lost it too.
The championship is a best of 24, with both players earning a half point for a draw. The first to 12.5 points is the victor.
Tremendous disadvantage to be behind 2-0 at the start of a match.
That's 5-0 in the last inning. It's a very, very big hole.
But Bobby was unwavering, and he refused to continue unless the cameras were removed.
Then we decided, away with the cameras. We are not jeopardizing the match for the cameras.
They end up moving Game 3 into a tiny little room at the back, which is normally used for table tennis. And it was possibly Boris Spassky's big mistake.
The Russians understood. They warned Spassky. They said, don't give in to him. Don't let him take control with his demands. Don't let it become his match, his tournament.
Mr. Spassky, are you happy with the arrangements for today's game?
He didn't need to agree to it. He could have stuck to his guns, and Fischer would have forfeited the World Championship, and Spassky would have remained world champion.
Instead, Bobby seized the momentum, winning Game 3.
That was a tremendous moment because it was the first time in his life Fischer had beaten Spassky. And it also indicated to us that Spassky wasn't quite on his game. He may have been rattled by all the shenanigans that had already happened.
I don't think Fischer deliberately played psychological games, but the effect of his demands was to psychologically destroy his opponents.
He won 6.5 out of his next 8 games, which it just doesn't make any sense against a player of Spassky's caliber.
The Soviets even begin to wonder whether CIA are poisoning Spassky. They check the chairs, they take the lights apart, and all they can find are 2 dead flies.
A sample of his orange juice is flown to a KGB laboratory in Moscow for testing.
They were measuring all kinds of beams and rays that could get into there.
It can't be the case that Spassky is just crumbling like this in the face of Fischer's psychological onslaught.
No evidence was discovered, and the match continued.
I think the second half of this match, there was much more of a fight somehow, you know. Because Spassky had, you know, he had regained his composure, he had also regained his self-confidence, you know.
But Game 11 would be Spassky's last victory. After 7 consecutive draws, Bobby was on the verge of winning the title. Midway through the 21st game, Spassky conceded. The World Championship belonged to Fischer.
What does it feel like after 20 years to suddenly become the world champion?
Feels pretty good.
I can't say I was actually crying, but I was misting up. I felt extremely proud that Bobby finally made it, and he was an American, and he had defeated the Soviets.
Coming from behind against great odds, against the Soviet machine, it was a wonderful moment.
Next up, Fischer stuns the chess world.
Fischer just disappeared. No speeches, no giving autographs, and it was to foreshadow what he was going to do for the rest of his life.
He stopped playing. He disappeared.
After wresting the 1972 World Chess Championship from Russian Boris Spassky, Bobby Fischer returned to America to a hero's welcome.
I hope to see more and more Americans playing chess. Chess is a great game. A game and a sport for the mind.
The world is Fischer's oyster now. He is set to become a multi-millionaire.
This symbolically says the king is dead. Not yet, he isn't.
He's offered lucrative sponsorship deals. He's offered huge prize money to appear in tournaments. Doesn't happen. He doesn't make a cent.
Bobby turned down nearly every single offer.
He won't sign his autograph, let's say, for $100 if you get $1 and he gets 99. He feels that he's entitled to get it all.
Instead, Bobby retreated to Pasadena, California, headquarters of Herbert Armstrong's Worldwide Church of God. Bobby had earned $200,000 for his victory in Iceland. He gave 20% to the church. In exchange, the church rented him an apartment and granted him use of its massive campus.
You need a place to stay. You need friends like myself, which I basically introduced him to a number of people that did different things for him. He had access to a car 24/7.
Over the next 3 years, Bobby made few public appearances. In 1975, he was scheduled to defend his world title.
Fischer makes 179 demands before he agrees to play Anatoly Karpov. The authorities concede to 177 of them. Fischer sticks to his guns, and they make one more concession. It turns out there's only one final sticking point, which they can't agree to.
Bobby demanded a change in the scoring, with draws not counting, and the champion needing to win 9 games, and the challenger 10 to take home the title. The proposal was rejected.
Fischer won't compromise, and so forfeits the World Chess Championship.
He could have gone on playing and winning and playing more of these beautiful games. God knows how long he could have been world champion.
There was huge offers for Fischer to reappear in the chess world.
It's really hard to understand why he didn't grab some of that money. I mean, it's unfathomable.
He had the sense almost of divinity.